Okay, hematuria.
Yes, depending on the amount of damage, this condition is called hematuria.
What else? I didn't hear. Increased protein, proteinuria, good.
Yes, producing a condition called proteinuria.
And glucose? Glucose can be absorbed already, no? If it is, glucose is absorbed already. If you want to see glucose, don't blame me.
No, glucose is already freely filtered.
Okay? Cannot be reduction, filtered volume cannot be true. There will be more filtered volume.
Just as gravity draws water through a coffee filter, so glomerular hydrostatic pressure promotes filtering of the blood. The blood pressure in the glomerulus averages 60 millimeters of mercury. This unusually high capillary pressure is the result of the short, large diameter afferent arterioles conveying blood at high arterial pressure directly to the glomerular capillaries. The smaller diameter of the efferent arterioles leaving the glomerulus also helps maintain the pressure by restricting the outflow of blood. However, the glomerular hydrostatic pressure is opposed by two forces that reduce the flow of fluid into the capsular space. Fluid already in the capsular space creates a back pressure that resists the incoming fluid. This capsular hydrostatic pressure averages 15 millimeters of mercury. The second opposing force is the osmotic pressure of the blood in the glomerular capillaries. Remember that the capillaries retain proteins, which become more concentrated in the blood as the filtrate flows out. Because of these proteins, the osmolarity of the blood is higher than the osmolarity of the filtrate. The osmotic pressure of the blood, or its tendency to draw the fluid back in, averages 28 millimeters of mercury. The algebraic sum of these three forces produces the net filtration pressure of 17 millimeters of mercury.
Well, these figures may not be the same in your book, a little bit different, okay, but don't get upset. Now, you already know the osmosis. What does osmosis do? Osmosis sucks. Yeah, it's the negative pressure. It's the negative pressure, okay? So that is already present inside the blood due to the colloidal nature of blood plasma. So the hydrostatic pressure, blood or glomerular blood hydrostatic pressure is opposed by the opposing pressure already inside the blood, and already in the capsular space there is fluid that is called capsular hydrostatic pressure. So if you subtract the sum of these two from here, you get a positive number, which is here 17 millimeters of mercury. This is the driving force for filtration, okay? So you know that we understand better when we can relate to American culture. So let's do that.
An analogy for this process would be a football player, number 60, trying to run for a touchdown. However, his progress to the goal line is slowed by two opposing players, number 15 and number 28. The runner eventually reaches the goal, but not as easily as he would without the resistance. Now let's see what happens when a smaller player carries the ball. Click the football to start the process. Here, the two opposing forces, players number 15 and number 28, add together to counteract a smaller, weaker player, number 43, stopping his forward progress. This situation is analogous to glomerular hydrostatic pressure, too low to overcome the countering forces and carry out filtration. This is referred to as kidney shutdown or acute renal failure. Serious consequences will occur unless increased pressure and filtration are resumed. We will now look at how the nephron monitors and regulates the glomerular hydrostatic pressure in order to maintain a relatively constant rate of filtration. The total amount of filtrate formed by all the renal corpuscles in both kidneys per minute is called the glomerular filtration rate, or GFR. In normal kidneys, the 17 millimeters of mercury of net filtration pressure produces approximately 125 milliliters of filtrate per minute. This translates to about 180 liters in 24 hours, nearly enough to fill a 50-gallon barrel. Fortunately, 99% of this volume will be reabsorbed as the filtrate passes through the tubules. The glomerular filtration rate is directly proportional to the net filtration pressure, so a fluctuation in any of three pressures previously discussed will change the GFR. Prolonged changes in normal GFR will cause either too much or too little water and solutes to be removed from the blood. Let's look next at how the body attempts to counteract the normal daily fluctuations of systemic blood pressure by initiating an autoregulation mechanism that maintains normal GFR. During normal conditions, systemic blood pressure registers approximately 120 millimeters of mercury. The diameter of the afferent arteriole is normal, as is the glomerular hydrostatic pressure. These conditions provide a normal glomerular filtration rate of 125 milliliters per minute. When blood pressure fluctuates during normal daily activities, autoregulatory mechanisms of the kidney alter the diameter of the afferent arteriole in order to maintain a relatively constant glomerular filtration rate. Now click the exercising button to increase the cartoon character's activity level. During mild exercise, the systemic blood pressure increases to 140 millimeters of mercury. If the afferent arteriole remains at the normal diameter, the 17% increase in glomerular hydrostatic pressure will cause a similar increase in GFR. If allowed to continue, this increase will quickly cause severe dehydration. To avoid extensive fluid loss, click the afferent arteriole to initiate autoregulation. The autoregulation mechanism decreases the diameter of the afferent arteriole, decreasing the glomerular blood flow. The glomerular hydrostatic pressure and GFR return to normal, even though the mild exercise continues and the systemic blood pressure remains elevated. Now click the normal button to reduce her activity level back to normal. Reducing the activity level returns the systemic blood pressure to 120 millimeters of mercury. The afferent arteriole dilates to maintain normal glomerular hydrostatic pressure and GFR. Now click the relaxed button to further reduce her activity level. During periods of relaxation, the systemic blood pressure may drop to 100 millimeters of mercury or lower. If the diameter of the afferent arteriole remains normal, blood flow into the glomerulus is reduced. This in turn causes a reduction of glomerular hydrostatic pressure and GFR. To avoid poor filtering of the blood, click the afferent arteriole to initiate autoregulation. As relaxation continues, the afferent arteriole dilates further to increase blood flow and glomerular hydrostatic pressure. Autoregulation has normalized the GFR. You may click any of the three buttons to repeat their activity. One of the mechanisms that provides autoregulatory control over renal processes is the result of the inherent tendency of vascular smooth muscle cells to contract when stretched. This allows the diameter of afferent arterioles to respond to changes in blood pressure. Therefore, when blood pressure in an arteriole increases, the walls of the vessel automatically constrict, reducing blood flow through the arteriole. Conversely, low blood pressure reduces this reflexive constriction, so the arteriole dilates and blood flow is increased. In renal autoregulation, this is called the myogenic mechanism. Click the weightlifter to see an